I want to pull back the curtain a little bit on you. So what we do in training camp is we go down there. They let us on the field, whether just as they're finishing up stretching, and then they have these different periods, and you see a big kind of a scoreboard clock in the corner there, and every time a big horn and they go to a new place, or they start new drills or whatever like that. And there's 9 or 10 of those type of things, and they work in drills. And for about half of that time, we can use our phones or professional cameras, TV people, all sorts of people out there. Maybe there's media member wise, I don't know, 50 or 60 media members out there doing different things, from TV stations, radio stations, beat reporters, writers, social media people, Niners, they got Niners people out there with their cameras. They can shoot anytime. And then you got a far end zone with like season ticket holders who get tickets to training camp, and they're in like a far end zone. And then there's two or three really large they've changed them this year. It's actually 2 large 100-yard football fields that are right next to each other. So that's kind of what you're dealing with. And we're all kind of walking around the sidelines, being careful not to get in the way of everything. And we're observing things, and we're doing cameras, and they're like, okay, shut them off. So the stuff that I send you back, they're just doing drills. Once they start hitting 11 on 11, which means they're working on offense and defense, they don't want they don't want that kind of video to be floating out there. So they don't want you shooting that. So that's it, because they're working on plays. You can tweet things out and say things and what I think, this, and that, and the other. They don't really want you to be talking about injuries or when a guy limps off, or you can say that. But anyway, they don't want you to get too deep into those kind of things. What we're essentially doing out there is we're looking for a big play of the day, a great defensive play, a guy we're constantly just noting things. But what that really is just to satisfy the hunger of the fans. So it's social media, it's pictures, it's video. We're sending it all back. And then each day it becomes kind of redundant. This guy had a good day. Guy had a good day. Maybe a guy had a sack. Maybe a guy had a tip ball. Maybe a guy had an interception, day by day by day by day by day. But in and of itself, those individual days, yeah, it's nice that the guy made a play, but it doesn't mean he's having a great camp. But if, as 𝐾𝐨𝐽 says, and you learned this phrase the other day, stacking days. So that's what it matters. So like 2 weeks now, we've got 2 weeks of information. And if the same guy or guys are doing this every single day, being great every single day, like a Bosa is, like a Kittle is, like a CMC is, we don't really even talk about that, because it's like, we know that. That's already in the bank, right? And I put that in the piece. Like, Kittle's Kittle, Warner's Warner. Nick Bosa's dominating. Trent Williams is great. CMC, the big thing is he's healthy. I'm telling you, if you have a fantasy football draft and you don't take him in the top 5, you're crazy. I'm not saying you're taking him over Saquon Barkley, but don't you dare sleep on Christian McCaffrey. He's going to be Christian McCaffrey this year. So if I had something to say about Nick Bosa, it would be he's probably pissed that he's number 57 on the top 100 list. And I think that now he may have some help on the defensive line, especially when Huff comes into the game, when Bryce Huff comes into the game. I think that he's going to have a monster year. I think that Brock Purdy, if they can field some receivers, is going to have a much better year than he did a year ago. But let me stay on the chalkboard here. So the first thing is, all this information and all this social media stuff and all these little videos that we all take and all this overreaction on day-to-day plays that are made, and he got an interception, and that would have been a pick 6, and he would have sacked this guy, and whoa, this guy, that young guy, this and that. It's all about injuries. There's 2 things that matter in training camp: stacking days, so day after day after day, consistent good work. That's number 2. And number 1 is don't get hurt, because you're going to get hurt during the season anyway. You don't want to have training camp injuries. So with the 49ers, they were already thin at wide receiver. 𝐃𝐨𝐽 goes down. Now, he's supposedly going to be back during Raiders joint practices, and that's the week of August 16th. After that, you'll have about 3 weeks to get ready for the opener at Seattle. So I think 𝐃𝐨𝐽's going to be fine if he's back in time, but he's still got a lot to prove. He didn't have an outstanding rookie, even though he's a different kind of a player, jet sweep-wise, to replace Debo and some of those things, because he's got that kind of speed. They like to get him the ball in open space. He could be a punt or a kick returner. So he's a fairly important guy, especially given the injuries. But the biggest one right now is 𝐬𝐮 Jennings. It went from kind of a minor deal with the contract to he's on the field the first day. All right, very cool. And now all of a sudden there's a calf injury that's a holdover from OTAs. And you know this as well as I do, but I'm going to remind you of this. When there's mystery around an injury like there is this one, that's when you get scared about a player. That's when you get concerned, because now there's no timetable for 𝐬𝐮 Jennings' return. Nobody's really talking about it. Kyle's really short when he's asked about it. That's when the alarms start going off in your head. So there's no 𝐬𝐮 Jennings. They don't know when he's going to come back. This is a holdover injury. Calves sometimes equal Achilles. So the whole thing is not good. And that was already knowing that Brandon Ayuk is probably going to be on the PUP list and miss the first 4 games of the year. That's knowing that Demarcus Robinson, who's been the most consistent wide receiver in camp, former Chief, former Ram, is going to miss probably the first 2 games because of the DUI. That's knowing that Ricky Pearsall, who, like, when he's out there, Pearsall has looked great. And I played a couple of cuts. Pearsall, when he's out there, man, he looks fast. His cuts, he's at a different level, really, in his route running ability, his hands, his body control. The dude is like, it'd just be a shame if he didn't live up to what his physical gifts show you because of injuries. And, look, the shooting was not his fault. The hamstring last year, he's had a hamstring this year, but he's out there in all the drills, like I'm telling you about, when we're able to shoot and everything. He's out there in all the drills, but then they're kind of limiting him when it's the 11-on-11 work that we can't tape, which is installing offense. It's 1s versus 1s, 2s versus 2s. It's everybody on the field. And he's made some plays there. He made a nice play over the middle that showed his quickness and route running ability on a quick in route last week that I was really impressed with. But they're limiting him in his time. And so if you look at the wide receiver room, Ayuk's probably out the first 4 games. Jennings is a mystery. Cowing is out. Pearsall, they're taking along slowly. And I think Brock's going to have a better year because Christian McCaffrey's back and he's got Kittle, and I think the line's going to be good. And I don't love Brendel, but okay. But, they're going to be okay. They're going to be enough. But now all of a sudden, who's going to throw to? Well, there's a couple of different guys. And I said this, everybody's kind of jumping on this bandwagon now, but we were all excited about Jordan Watkins, the rookie out of Ole Miss that ran a 4.3 at the combine. Everyone was excited in shorts. And then he kind of got, in my opinion, off to a slow start in camp. But then one of the days I went out there and I just focused on him. Of course, my love for the defensive line. So, of course, after I was looking all at the defensive line and tape, doing all that with my phone, on 11-on-11s, all I did was look at Jordan Watkins for probably the first, 10 or 12, 15 plays that he was in there. And he has this great jab step. It's, he's not overly physical yet, but, so he's not going to be like if somebody jams him at the line, but it's like try to get a hold of Jordan Watkins because he's got this nice jab step out in, and then he cuts across the field. And I've told you this before, it's like a Kansas City quick slant across the middle. And if you think a linebacker or a nickel is going to stay with Jordan Watkins, I got news for you. They're not. So that's a quick 4 or 5 yards that he can get every single time. And then as far as the deep ball is concerned, he looks like he can be maybe that speed piece that they tried to get with Danny Gray, and they've tried over the last number of years with Kyle, and they just haven't been able to get it. Maybe he's that piece because he's able to get deep, and you've seen some of Brock's deep throws in camp, which is nice. So I like what's going on with Watkins. And then Russell Gage is a veteran. You can tell that because he's wearing a number in the 80s, and none of the young kids do that. He wears 84, and he's made some nice plays in camp. He was with Tampa. He was with Atlanta. I wouldn't be surprised at all in weeks 1 and 2, especially until Demarcus Robinson comes back early in the season, that he would be a key player for the 49ers. And even though you would look at it and think that's not really sexy, well, they've got some veterans on this team that we forget about because we become so infatuated with younger players and who's going to be the next big thing that we forget that a guy like Isaiah Hodgins or a guy like Russell Gage have been there before. And Kyle Shanahan likes guys that he can count on and trust. We think about Steve Kerr all the time and Jonathan Kuminga, and he doesn't trust him. He doesn't trust him. Well, in football, you better be where you're supposed to be, because if you're not, it's going to be an interception for the other team. Brock Purdy is an anticipatory thrower, so he's thinking 1, 2, 3. This is where you're supposed to be. And if you're not, then that's a problem. Well, Gage is going to be there. Hodgins is probably going to be there. I don't know if Watkins is going to be there. I don't know if Cowing is going to be there. But so it wouldn't surprise me that if, as much as we talk about young receivers and who could step up among the younger guys, and there's a lot of them in camp, that he would go with veteran players if possible. I hope it's Pearsall. I hope Jennings is back in time. But if not, Gage, Hodgins, and maybe somebody who's not even on the roster right now could be those players that Kyle trusts more than guys who are actually in camp. But Watkins is a guy that has flashed time and time again. And that's what I mean about there's the daily, and now we've got a couple of weeks to look at maybe a more of a big picture. And guys who you're seeing it every single day, that's when you get excited about somebody. So offensively, the major issue is wide receiver. Who are they going to field it, especially in the first couple of weeks of the year? Brock Purdy is always a big conversation. He's looked great. He's not going to play a ton in the preseason, but he's looked great. He looks like he's added a deep ball to his repertoire, and it seems like every single day he's hit about 4 or 5 of them in the 11-on-11s, and that's in addition to a couple of that he hit with Kittle on short ones that went the distance because Kittle just kept running. But I'm saying, 50 yards, 40, 50 yards in the air, and he's hitting guys right in stride. And you can look at it 2 ways. Either, hey, Brock's got a deep ball. He's added a deep ball to everything. That's awesome. Or, hey, these DBs suck. It's one of the two, because if he was throwing against another team, it'd be different. So anyway, Brock has looked really good. Brock is Brock. He's moving well in the pocket. You can tell that he worked on different arm angles and ways that he was going to get rid of the football in the offseason. He said in press conferences that was something that he worked on. He's showing it in camp. I think Brock is going to be back to what he was the first couple of years and even better than he was last year when I think he tried to just put too much on his shoulders with all the injuries. He's not that kind of a guy. If he plays it within himself, I think he's going to be fine, and I think Brock Purdy understands that. You get CMC back. To me, everybody who's asking questions about CMC's health don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, he's 28. He keeps himself in impeccable shape. And the only difference I see at all with McCaffrey is maybe, just maybe, although Kyle says it and then he's so good he just can't help himself. He keeps him in there. I like ''ghendo. I think he can take some of the load off. Jordan James has a knee injury. We don't know how extensive it is. He looked great busting through holes. And I've told you this at 5'8", 5'9". He's built. He's not small. He's short. And he gets through the hole. He's caught the ball well out of the backfield day after day. And now he's got a knee injury. So they brought in Ameer Abdullah, who's, he played with the Lions, played with the Raiders. He's a veteran guy. And I was wondering why they brought him in because I thought the three backs are set. And they might even have a couple other guys in camp that might be able to be on the practice squad that look like they're your typical, hey, the Niners found somebody. And they brought in a number of backs, including Jeff Wilson Jr., but they didn't sign him. They signed Abdullah. So it might be something with Jordan James here because they brought in Abdullah, and I was a little bit like, why are they bringing him in? And then you hear about James' knee injury, and we're not sure what that is. So, again, the injury bug for the Niners is a thing. As far as the offensive line is concerned, anything that you hear about Trent Williams, like I saw where people were writing about Trent Williams and maybe he was off to a slow start or something like that. Trent doesn't even like training camp. I've seen Bryce Huff blow right by Trent Williams in 11-on-11s, and I didn't even write it down. And the reason I didn't was because Trent's just working his work. That's all he's doing. He's not like these rookies who are like, they're trying to make a team or trying to start, and they're going 110 miles per hour. Trent's kind of on cruise control right now, and he knows how to get through a training camp. So anything that you hear about Trent, Bosa beat him and this guy beat him, who cares? It really means nothing whatsoever. And I know he's 37, and so he could slow down at some point, but he's not. He's fine. And anything you hear from camp, like I said, this is why what I mean by the day-by-day stuff, Trent's not as good. Yeah, whatever. He's fine. He's pacing himself. He's not a rookie. He doesn't need to go 110 miles an hour, and he's not. He's kind of like, okay. I mean, I literally saw Bryce Huff one time before Trent hardly got out of his stance one time on 11-on-11s. And I just kind of went like, it wasn't even a big deal. Then everybody else is scribbling, next to me. And I'm like, it's nothing. It's nothing whatsoever. So that's the offensive side of things. Defensively, this is where the fun is. I've told you about this. The defensive line has me pretty excited. 3 of the 4 guys along the defensive line could be starters that are rookies. Robert Saleh said during this camp that 6 to 8 rookies could start. Now, what that tells you is, before we get into the position battles defensively, what that tells you is they're going to get off to a slow start defensively. Can I just tell you that so that you don't freak out on a Sunday? Because week 1 in Seattle scores some points, and it's going to put a ton of pressure on the offense early in the year. And I think this offense, which, by the way, do you realize that the Niners scored 22.9 points per game last year, which was 10th? That's not good. This is a team that needs to score 27, 28 points. They need to be a top 5 scoring offense so that they can support this defense early in the season. That is critical to their success this year. They can't average 22.9 and be 10th in scoring. They were tied with Atlanta for 10th in scoring last year. That can't be the case. They add a touchdown onto that this year. And they will, McCaffrey, and like I said, they'll get the receivers back. I think they're going to be fine. So they need to do that first and foremost. But defensively, I'm just telling you so you don't get frustrated and freak out and think that the defense at the beginning of the season is going to be the defense at the end of the season or even the middle of the season. They're going to have, if they don't have 8 rookies, they're at least going to have. Mikael Williams has had a very good camp, not like CJ West, but he's had a very good camp. He's going to start at one end, and he's going to move inside on passing downs. I've seen him do both. He's still got some work to do, but you can see with the length and the athleticism and everything, he's going to be great. And Robert Saleh has said it. So there's one. Alfred Collins has taken a minute. I'm not going to lie to you. He's, again, exposing the chest, standing up. He's nearly 6'6". He gives me some flashbacks of Kinlaw where he just stands up and he can manhandle you. But again, you stand up, expose your chest. Guards who are big in this league, 325, 330 pounds, are lower than you. They're just going to fork you, lift you out of there, no matter how big Alfred Collins is. And he is massive. And I posted a bunch of videos that I took from camp, but he's going to take a minute. And he wasn't in OTAs. He had a little bit of an injury. Then he was out because he hadn't signed. So he's a little bit behind, and he's going to take a minute. So hopefully he progresses through camp and is going to become a major part. But for a minute, for right now, he's behind a little bit. CJ West, on the other hand, has been incredible. I mean, I don't think that's too strong of a word, and you've heard it from everybody. And again, I've posted a bunch of stuff on CJ West. The defensive tackle, the rookie out of Indiana, has been absolutely great. And I think what's going to happen is on their pass rushing package, their turbo package, that's what they call their pass rushing package, Mikael Williams is going to move inside from end to tackle. Huff is going to be on that side. Next to him, I think, is going to be CJ West, who can right now it's just a bull rush, but who cares? He can push the pocket. And then it's going to be Bosa on the other end. Bosa's still going to see double teams, triple teams, chipping from the tight end and backs. But with hopefully that much talent next to him, they're going to at least have to think twice. And Huff, by the way, is a rocket off the edge. If he doesn't get hurt, he's going to get double-digit sacks like he did 2 years ago with the Jets. Last year he was at the Eagles, miscast, injured, all that kind of stuff. He's back with Saleh, and I played videos. He doesn't talk a lot. He's kind of serious. He's built, and he is super fast off the edge. I mean, that's just all there is to it. He has a plan. He knows what he's doing, but he screams off the edge. He's not an edge setter. I don't know if they're going to play him. He's going to be anything but a pass rush specialist for the Niners, unless Mikael Williams just can't get it done and they have to put him there. But he's a little bit undersized, but man, does he rock it off the edge. And he and Bosa, and if West can be a pocket pusher like he's shown in camp, that defensive line is going to be fine. They've just got to be able to stop the run so that they can put the other team in passing situations. That would be my main concern. Jordan Elliott is still around. Kevin Gibbons is still around. They've got a number of guys. Evan Anderson has certainly shown flashes. He's a big guy inside. Got to be able to stop the run. And like I said, early in camp or early in the season, they've got so much youth that they're going to have some issues. It's just going to happen. All right. Linebacker wise, I actually feel very, very good. Fred's Fred. We don't even have to talk about him. He's the best linebacker in the league. D Winters, I'm very encouraged by. He was around the ball a lot last year, but he didn't make plays. I think he's mature. Talk to him down there. He's had some podium sessions, or he's had one podium session. He just like you can just tell when a guy is mature, when a guy's ready to break out. He's had a couple of interceptions in camp. He's around the ball constantly. I just think he's ready. And then the third linebacker, because they're going to be playing a lot of nickel and stuff like that, the third linebacker, not quite as important, but Luke Gifford from Tennessee has played a lot of that third linebacker. He's more of a special teams guy, so I don't love that. But Curtis Robinson is a guy that they like. He hasn't been in camp yet, but they just activated him, so we'll see. He's a little bit behind. And then, of course, there's Nick Martin. And there's nothing wrong with Nick Martin at all. Nick Martin is super fast. He's still figuring things out and thinking a little bit too much, so he's not maybe as fast to react as he is going to be at some point. And that's why I keep mentioning the, early in the season kind of a thing. He'll get better and better mentally, which means physically he's going to get better because he's just going to be able to react and not think. He's built, and he's not small, but he's short, but he's also light. So he's maybe 6 foot and he's 220 pounds. He does not look big standing next to the other linebackers, but he's super fast, which means, again, those big defensive linemen that they drafted, Collins, and they have Elliott and CJ West and guys like that, are going to have to keep big offensive linemen like guards and centers from getting to the second level and picking him off. Because if they do, he's going to get swallowed up. So he's a little bit behind. And as of this very moment, he's not the third linebacker on the field, but he's got plenty of time. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with what he's doing. It's just that I would say that from a rookie perspective, and I'll get to the secondary in just a second, CJ West has flashed, Mikael Williams, Collins a little bit behind, Martin, I'm not going to call him behind, but it's, a little bit. But so that's what you're going to see from your rookies. And then from a secondary standpoint, the best player in the secondary for the 49ers consistently through camp, and this is why I'm saying 2 weeks, he could flash once or twice. And that's what Upton Stout, the third rounder from Western Kentucky in the nickel, was doing early in camp, but they were in shorts. And so it was like, okay, the guy's 5'8", 180. He's coming from a small college. What's he going to be able to do? Well, he was flashing every day in camp, and then all of a sudden they put pads on, and it reminds me, I've told you this before, K'Wan Williams. Undersized, sticks his nose in there, plays bigger than his size. He's all of a sudden, he wears number 20, and it's like, there's number 20 again, there's number 20 again, there's number 20 again. It's incredibly early in camp, and unless he gets injured or something weird happens, we're only 2 weeks into the camp. He's the starting nickel, and it's almost like, I don't want to go too far, but like, Warner's Demo's starting, Warner's starting, Bosa's starting. I'm not saying it's quite to that level, but it's like nobody's really challenging him in the slot and haven't so far. And every single day, Kyle's talked about him, Paulo's talked about him. I mean, this is unprompted, when they're talking about the secondary. So this kid is going to be the starting nickel. Demo's out with a little bit of a hip. That's no big deal. Demo's going to be there. The biggest question in the secondary, there's two, I think. Got to get Renardo Green back. There is just not any depth there, or proven depth. Trey Brown, you might say, who came over from Seattle. But get this, there were 68 games in his career. He was there 4 years in Seattle from 21. 68 possible games. He played in 39. So Trey Brown's not a bad player. He just hasn't stayed healthy. When you're talking about depth behind Renardo Green, who I think is going to take another step forward, the second-year player out of Florida State, which I talk about this all the time. It's more that the second-year players are going to step up, and you got to have the rookies do it, but it normally takes them a minute. Renardo Green can step up this year, but he's got to get back to camp. And just like 𝐾𝐿, his hamstring injury, Kyle said that he's going to be back Raiders week, which is the week of August 16th when they go down to Vegas. Eli Apple, who they signed, is not a long-term solution. Darrell Luter Jr., we keep hearing about him. Every time I see him, he's on the bad end of a deep ball that I'm seeing slow mode with one of the receivers going deep. He wears 28. I haven't seen him flash yet. There's a couple other rookies in there that may have an opportunity, but they don't have enough. So that's, I'm looking at that going, please, Renardo Green, be healthy, because they just don't. And that's an overall theme with the team, and everybody knows this. They're very top-heavy, so you can't have injuries. But the places that they really, really, really are thin, receiver, as we've talked about ad nauseum, and the defensive backs. I mean, that's just where it is. And then from a safety position, this is where I really think that John Lynch may go out along with receiver and get to a team that's going to waive somebody or something and say, hey, let us get him first. Get in the, rather than having to fight somebody on a waiver wire, stay on the lines with people and say, hey, because they're doing this right now in the front office. They know what they've got, but what they're doing is, this is what they do. They've got a board, okay, in John Lynch's office, and they know what team has got what. And they are targeting teams with receivers and defensive backs, both corners and safeties, and they're looking at them going, that team's stacked there, that team's stacked there, that team's stacked there. And other teams are doing the same thing. Niners have certain positions that they're deep in, and teams are monitoring that. Will they let that guy go? Would they trade that guy? Whatever the case may be. And it reminds me, remember 𝐸 Gibson a couple of years ago at the safety spot, and they got him late in camp, and he ended up being great and, really helping them. The Super Bowl wasn't so great, but he ended up being a nice add. And the reason why, it was what I like to call an adult in the room. They need an adult in the room on the back end. It's not that I don't like Jason Pinnock, and Jair Brown is really maturing, and I love the press conference he had the other day, and he really sounds like he's ready to put a tough year two because of injuries behind him. So I'll trust Jair Brown for now, but until Malik Mustafa comes back, I don't love the other safety position, and I'd love it if they could pick somebody up, especially a veteran on the back end, because, again, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but there is no safety net behind a safety or a defensive back. You're going to give up a big play, Justin Jefferson, so you can't have that. So I think they'll pick somebody up within the secondary. So that's what I think as far as that goes. Questions, comments, thoughts, by the way. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but I just wanted to go through what I think I know through 2 weeks. And then as far as kicking is concerned, and I hate talking about kicking because you're going to leave me if I talk about it too much, but it's Jake Moody versus Greg Joseph. I'm not a huge Greg Joseph fan. He's jumped all over the league. Jake Moody has a bigger leg than him, and I know it's shocking you that I'm defending Jake Moody to a certain extent. The problem with Moody is not physical. He cut down he changed his kicking. He's now got a two-step, and he's missed a couple in team periods. Greg Joseph has been more consistent, but people aren't thinking about this. With all their special teams issues, kicking the ball out of the end zone is a big deal, and Moody's got a stronger leg, so we'll see. But even if Moody misses a kick in the preseason, all that mental work that he did in the offseason are the tubes. So I'd like Moody to win it, almost to justify that third-round pick, even though I hated it and screamed the moment that it was done, and it's on. All you got to do is look it up. I screamed and yelled no when they did it, and I was right next to the Niners draft room, and they were like, bro. But, it would be best if he did because he's got the strongest leg. But it is a true competition. And I think if he struggles in preseason, Kyle's had enough. So it is a true competition. So there you go. Injuries, offense, defense, kicking. Any questions, comments, or thoughts? Did I miss anybody or anything? Like I said, guys like McCaffrey, Warner, Kittle, even Brock is in this category to me. I know I didn't talk a lot about them, but they're money in the bank, those guys. And I'm not here to debate anybody's list or top tens on Brock. Brock's going to have a bounce back year. Trust me. He did a lot of work. He looks really good in camp, and I think he's going to be good. Now, is there an issue with the receivers? There is. So we shall see on that. What I just said basically is in written form at johnlundunleashed.com. If you want to check that out, there it is right there, johnlundunleashed.com. What I think I know 2 weeks into training camp, and that's at johnlundunleashed.com. If you want to read what I just said, essentially, there it is right there.